Welcome to the New to Crypto podcast, designed to guide you through the crypto landscape with pinpoint accuracy, created for the new and intermediate crypto investor. Join your host, Crypto Travels Michael, as he takes you through the different facets of getting started and succeeding in your crypto journey. New to Crypto podcast brings you new episodes daily, Monday through Friday, with surprise bonus episodes sometimes on the weekend. Let me ask you, are you new to crypto? Don't know where to start? Are you more experienced but have questions? Then you're in the right place. This podcast is designed for you. Coming at you from the Trading Center in the Lifestyle Design Studio, here's your host, Crypto Travels Michael.
Brave Wallet is the first secure crypto wallet built natively in a Web3 crypto browser. No extension required. You can store, manage, and grow your portfolio, get NFTs and multi-chain support. Download the Brave privacy browser at brave.com/new-to-crypto and click on the wallet icon to get started.
Hey, welcome to today's podcast. I'm excited about today's interview. Today I have Bryan Ritchie, who's the CEO of Simba Chain, the development platform that helps companies transition from Web 2 to Web 3. He's also a partner at Atua Partners, a leading venture studio and investment firm. And previous to Simba, Bryan was Notre Dame's vice president for innovation, leading the university's Innovation, De-risking, and Enterprise Acceleration Center, where he worked closely with deans, alumni, faculty, and students to start over 150 companies. As general partner and chief investment officer for the Pit Road Fund, he led investments into over 42 companies. Bryan has an extensive experience in both industry and the academic in the academy. He has been a full professor at Michigan State University, the University of Utah, and the University of Notre Dame. I'd like you to welcome me in welcoming Bryan Ritchie to the podcast. Bryan, man, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for what a great intro. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here, Mike.
Hey, absolutely. Before we dive in, can you just share with our listeners just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, sure. I started in the tech industry in the 90s when I know most of your listeners probably weren't even born yet, and have seen, these transformations as we've gone from Web 1 to Web 2 and now to Web 3. I worked for some early networking companies, started my own company several times, exited those, and then decided to get back into teaching, where it took me to being a professor, as you mentioned. But my real love is starting companies. I've now done about 450 companies from 0 to 1. Got about 16 exits, 3 IPOs that I've been a part of, and now been working with several of these investment funds and venture studios. So just have a deep love for starting companies, and now really excited about this Web3 transformation that we're currently in and working with Simba.
Wow. Now, thanks for sharing a little bit. Did you say hundreds? Yeah. Hundreds of projects you've been involved in. This is serial entrepreneur to the core.
Right.
We're speaking the same language right here. Hey, before we jump into some more like detailed technical overview type of things about Simba Chain, can you just share like a little general idea and like an overview for our listeners as to what Simba Chain is?
Yeah, sure. And it might be fun to just tell really quickly our founding story. So our two co-founders answered a DARPA request for a grant around secure information on the blockchain. And one of our co-founders is a 30-year peer-to-peer networking veteran who was also at the University of Notre Dame. And we answered that grant and got the grant and went and built out this secure internet messaging platform. In fact, Simba initially stood for Secure Internet Messaging on the Blockchain Architecture. So just to give you an idea of where Simba came from. But in the process of building out that application, just realized that it's super hard to build out on blockchain. It requires so much specific knowledge based on which chain you build for. You got to know solidity, you got to understand the hashing, all that stuff that is super technical. And what we realized was we should be building the abstracted platform that just makes that easy. So that's what that's what Simba is. And we changed the name to just be Simple Blockchain Applications. So that's what Simba stands for now. And that's our whole focus, our whole purpose.
Wow. Okay. Well, I have quite a few questions to dig in about that. Before we do, we have listeners in 168 countries and growing on this show. And can you just share a little bit about, well, like, what is DARPA for our listeners that may not be familiar?
Yeah, so DARPA is it's an organization usually in the DoD that usually does interesting things around information, supply chain, and by the way, this is where we really got started in kind of real world business solutions. So for us, they were, in this case, the government has been a first mover in blockchain because they recognize the opportunity to solve real world problems with this, and they were, it's just a research organization and was looking to solve a real problem, and we were able to do that for them.
Wow. Congratulations to you guys for, being problem solvers. Let me ask you, who would be the best targeted customer or business that Simba helps?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for us, we've really, given our background that I just told you about, we've really started with the enterprise and large organization, and we started at the top down. So we're usually working with the CTOs of those organizations who are really trying to solve specific problems. I'll give you an example. We worked with Boeing. In fact, for all of your Mexican listeners, we've also worked with Tokes, which many of them are familiar with. But they've come with very specific problems. They need to either give visibility into their supply chain, or they want to ensure sustainability, or they want to help with, tracking assets through various points that in the past have been difficult to verify or validate. So these are all areas that we've really started with. And, while we know that there will be a lot of other applications that people might develop on our platform, asset management tracking, supply chain tracking, food safety and supply, those are big areas that are obvious for us. And that's kind of where we're starting.
Okay. And I mean, I've also, in my research and preparing for this, I've seen that you guys are helping, businesses, enterprises in supply chain, food, beverage, as you mentioned, aviation, you mentioned Boeing, automotive, manufacturing, medical, and of course, government, right?
That's right.
Let me ask you, how does Simba eliminate the complexity of blockchain app development, making Web3 technology accessible to all? Because I love what you guys are doing of how you're helping bridge the gap.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that question. So really, if you think about most of the people developing today, they're developing in a Web 2, very centralized, if you think about a cloud environment. And what we've done is we've created a platform that looks and feels very Web 2. It's a REST API development platform. It is abstracted away from the actual blockchain, the need to know the specific blockchain information, because we've all made it an API. So now what you can do is you can make calls just like you would in any REST API development environment that can access any blockchain. So think about this for a second, Mike. Right now, if you develop for a blockchain, you got to pick your chain. You got the specifics of that chain. You got to develop for that chain. And then once you've chosen that, you're locked in. In our environment, because we've abstracted that up a level, you can develop today for, let's say you choose Polygon, and tomorrow you want to do it on Avalanche. It's just a simple API call change, and you can move it to a different chain. Wow. We have searching across all of the previous chains you've done, so you don't lose anything, and just make it really simple and cost effective to build that out in a low code environment.
Wow. That actually overcomes a major pitfall, I guess you would say, for new crypto startup projects. I've been in many meetings with crypto community, physical in-person meetings, and I've talked with a lot of people that either want to start up projects or they already have one. And you just hit the nail on the head. They're sort of backed in the beginning to just one particular blockchain.
Yeah. And the cool part about this is on the far end of simplicity, it's so easy, right? I mean, we have graphical user interface, drag and drop. It writes Solidity code in the background. It's a super easy way to get started. But for the more sophisticated developer, we have all the tools that you would want, right? The SDK, the APIs, all the dev toolkits, everything that you need to really build out very sophisticated applications. I mean, we're doing a project right now with Boeing, Spirit, and Raytheon on the C-46 transport plane that is as sophisticated as you can possibly imagine with respect to supply chain. So whether you're doing, finance or supply chain or food safety or healthcare, as you mentioned, you can access and build any of those applications on our platform.
Okay, good to know. So What would be the process for someone who's interested in building Web3 applications with you guys? Or is there anything in addition to what you just mentioned about the interface and how you built it out? Or like let's say we have a listener, we have projects, future projects, if you will, and they want to reach out to you and your team. What's the process look like?
Yeah, for sure. So we have a number of different entry points to make this, again, super simple to work with us. I mean, obviously, a super easy way is just to go to simbachain.com and just connect with us there. And you can see all of our use cases out there, but you can also connect with us and get started. We have a couple of different models. One model is if you already know what you want to build and you're going to start a Web3 application from the ground up, we're happy to work with you to get you started on that process. And again, the product itself is so simple to get started. But most of our customers already have Web 2 applications, and they want to start to integrate Web 3 functionality into those Web 2 applications. And the good news is that this isn't an all or nothing scenario. It's not like you have to, dump your Web 2 application and start over on a Web 3 application. We make it super simple to actually integrate the new functionality in Web 3 that you want to integrate within your Web 2 application. And there again, you can either work with your development team. We have partner development teams that can work with you, and we can also help with our support and go-to-market teams that can help you get started. So lots of ways that you can do this, and you can start really small. So a lot of these companies started with small projects and have built out over time.
Okay. Let me ask you, why is it important for a company to say transition from say Web 2 and get into building Web 3 applications? What are some benefits for some of our listeners around the world that may not be so detailed in this area?
Yeah, I think there are 3 or 4 really big important reasons, and these aren't in any particular order, but let me just talk about a few of them. One is that the data itself, the data that you put on chain, has never been hacked. We talk about blockchains being hacked, but really that's not true. What's happening is that they're getting access to keys in a way, and they're getting access to the data, but the data have never been hacked. So there's a security level that goes beyond a centralized location, which we call kind of a honeypot of hacker locations, right? Where people can hack easily a lot of data. That's not true on the blockchain. So there's a real advantage from a security standpoint to doing work on the blockchain. The other thing is if you've got a lot of people or a lot of organizations that need to read and write and transact with the data simultaneously, the blockchain is a great place to do that because it can do it in a trustless environment where you don't have people who have to verify or validate those data. This leads actually to huge benefits economically. So one of the cases we've done that some of your listeners might be familiar with is that we helped the Tox restaurant chain track their coffee from the farmers in Chiapas all the way to the cup of coffee in the restaurant. An app is coming soon because of our knowledge of where this from the supply chain that a customer can actually walk into a restaurant, click on a QR code, and tip the farmer. That's how much knowledge we now have around who grew it, where it was grown, what the quality was. But the really cool part, Mike, is that now we've been able to 6x the revenue back to the farmer. They used to be making $15K a year, and now they're making $75K a year. Now their kids are able to come back and join them back on the farm again. And just from a sustainability standpoint, this has really changed the business for them dramatically. We removed 9 layers of verification in this process through using the blockchain.
Wow, man, that's major. So you've basically been helping an entire coffee industry or have begun your footprint into Mexico in working with the farmer all the way up to the large corporation who has the restaurants where ultimately the cup of coffee is consumed.
Correct. And the cool part too is that now these farmers, because they have such access to verifying their quality, have now been able to export. So now this is connecting to the big export houses in Switzerland that are taking Mexican coffee that never did before, because now they have validated and verified provenance in the supply chain because it's all in the blockchain as they go forward. So again, there are huge advantages of this to everybody engaged in terms of the way that they can now do business that they couldn't before.
Wow, man, that's fantastic. Can you talk about, you also have a case study about aviation with, I think it was the Air Force that you guys worked with?
Yeah, so NavAir came to us and said, we've been working with a number of suppliers. We have some main suppliers like Boeing, but we also have 400 sub-suppliers, some of which, work through Boeing, some of which work through us. And right now, we can't tell at any one time where the parts are in the supply chain. We have some ideas that they are between X and Y, but we couldn't give you the exact location, how long they've been there, and what the projection is for how long they will be there. What we were able to do was put all of that in a blockchain that allowed multiple parties to write the data and then consume the data through a number of other applications that they wanted to use that allowed them to see the data in real time. So now they can look at any part for the plane that they're building, and they can find out exactly where it is, how long it's been there, how long it will still be there, and when it will be someplace else, as well as defect and quality information, which has really changed the game from a supply chain standpoint. So for any supply chain, it doesn't matter whether it's textiles, manufacturing goods, food, you're able to now track it back to source, where it is at any given point in time, what the interactions are with it at that given point in time, which I think gives companies a lot more power and opportunity with what they're building and shipping.
Brave Wallet is the first secure crypto wallet built natively in a Web3 crypto browser. What's Web3? Web3 is freedom from big tech and Wall Street. More control and better privacy. But there's a weak point in Web3, your crypto wallet. Most wallets are browser extensions, a Web2 technology. That means the same old risks: app spoofing, phishing scams, and theft. Brave Wallet is different. Brave Wallet is the first secure wallet built natively in a Web3 crypto browser. No extension required. With Brave Wallet, you can buy, store, send, and swap assets, manage NFTs, even connect other wallets and dApps, all from the security of the best privacy browser on the market. Whether you're new to crypto or a seasoned pro, it's time to ditch those risky extensions. It's time to switch to Brave Wallet. Download Brave at brave.com/new to crypto and click on the wallet icon to get started.
Wow, man, I just love how you're helping bring different industries into Web3 and into blockchain. Traditional business models that may have not had a background in it. They see it's the future. They see all the benefits that you're talking about, the transparency, the trustless. They can locate certain things, but to bring it all together and what you guys have created is a phenomenal part. Let me segue into, can you explain what Simba blocks are?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I saw one of your case studies, you mentioned it. So if you can kind of paint us a picture.
Yeah, absolutely. So because we've built a platform product on which you can build anything, we started to realize that there are certain implementations that are both really useful and can solve problems and are in demand by our customers. And what we do is we build out pre-built, what we call blocks. These are additional APIs, but also code to help solve those specific problems. So for example, we're building a supply chain track and trace block. And what that means is we've done so many of these blockchain supply chain implementations that now what we've done is packaged all of that up as a quote block that runs on our platform that a customer can just take and implement, right? Think about it like a template. So they could sit down and have a complete implementation of a blockchain solution, which they could then take and customize or, finish making exactly what they want that's already pre-built. And we see a number of these, right? Like NFT asset management, NFT marketplace, development, supply chain track and trace, information management, metadata registry management. All of these would be blocks that would run on top of our platform. Ultimately, we hope that the development community will build their own blocks that run on our platform that they would make available as well. So I think there's a lot of upside here as we build out these solutions. As you know, there are tens of thousands of solutions and opportunities to build out on blockchain. We think all of those will be able to run on blocks. So again, whether it's DeFi or whatever, we're going to build out those blocks.
Fantastic. It seems like that those blocks have helped overcome some common challenges with like even the user-friendly UI and low-code dev environment that you have built in with, you've basically, like you said, you created like almost like a template.
Yeah.
A working canvas, if you will. That's one of my favorite expressions, a working canvas of a place to begin for these companies that are coming to you.
Totally right. And the nice thing about that is just, again, more ease of use, right? The platform's already easy to start, but now we're basically bundling open source code that people can start to use as templates to build out their applications.
Fantastic. And you mentioned NFTs, and we all know that NFTs have exploded in the last few years. And can you share with our listeners and explain the advantage of your NFT block, which is one of Simba's products, and for companies, and explain to also the companies that may hear this about maybe they want to integrate NFTs into their business model?
Yeah, this is a really important point you're bringing up here because in the past, most people have thought about NFTs as digital art. They think of Bored Apes Yacht Club kind of stuff. And that's fine, but that's not the real upside value of NFTs. NFTs are a representation of an asset, can be either digital or physical, and it allows you to be able to track that asset through its lifespan. So, I'll give you a great example. We're using NFTs to track automobiles for the California DMV, where each vehicle has a lifespan, right? It has a first owner, and it moves through multiple owners, and you want to be able to tie that vehicle to the owner at any given point in time. This is useful for fraud purposes, insurance purposes, taxation purposes. And because you're able to do that, that asset then becomes trackable, and it also becomes verifiable and validated, which might be useful for, collector's items. You can think of anything that you wanted to verify, like, hey, this Rolex watch is a real Rolex watch and was purchased at this point in time and has this validation signature in it. We've done this for snowboards. We've done this for cars. You can do it for art, certainly. That's where it started. But
fine art.
But companies are now using NFTs to track intercompany transactions. So, we're working with big manufacturers who are selling internally equipment, finished product, inventories. All of those things can now be tracked using NFTs. And what we've done that makes it even better than a lot of other people is we've put extra security and privacy capabilities into our NFT block. So we track in the chain the metadata, which gives a cryptographic hash thumbprint of the asset inside the chain. So you can never lose it. One of the things some people are recognizing is that they buy an NFT, they come back 6 months later, and the URI pointed to the asset is no longer there. You've got link decay, and so it no longer points to the asset for which it was purchased. We solved that problem by putting all of that in the chain. And then because we work through Polygon and Avalanche, the cost of doing that is fractions of a penny. So it's really cool technology that we've implemented.
Wow, man, that's exciting. We touched on something earlier, and I just want to circle back to it. And when businesses or even governments turn to blockchain and turn to Simba, how do you guys help them identify which blockchain would be right for their project or for their use cases? Because you guys help consult in that area when they come to you, or?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And one of the things that is a driving foundational principle for us, as I mentioned, is that we're blockchain agnostic. But what we have done is been able to point people and say, look, do you need a public chain or a private chain? And because we support both, we can then say, is this something you're just doing with you and your suppliers? You might want a private chain. Or if you want other people on it that you don't necessarily know today, you want a public chain. What's more important to you? Is accessibility more important? Is speed? Is cost? And then we can look at those things and say, these are the ones that we would recommend. And we have a couple of chains that we really like right now. We really like Polygon. We've done a lot of work on Avalanche. We've certainly done, Ethereum mainnet. We're doing a project on Tezos. We've even done Stellar, if you can believe it. And, Hyperledger and a number of instances, we've done that as well. So the cool part, too, is because we're an API-driven platform, if you came to us and said, hey, I want to do this on, pick your chain, the graph, whatever, it would be a few days of work for us to get the API set up for you to be able to do that. So, it's some of it is our customers leading us to chains they want, and some of it is us helping our customers pick the right chain.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that, Bryan. Let me ask you, you touched on private and public chains. And for some of our listeners, because this is the New to Crypto show, right, who might just be new to crypto, and listeners might be familiar with all blockchains are transparent and public, et cetera. However, when you help, say, for example, the military or the government, I'm going to venture to guess that those are probably private chains, or for their own use cases. So can you share with our listeners the difference of like, what is a private chain?
Yeah. So the only difference between private and public chains is the private chain has a private consensus mechanism. So the consensus mechanism is the means by which the members of the chain determine what blocks that are going on that chain are valid, have been verified. So many of your listeners may have heard, Bitcoin does a proof of work consensus mechanism where people have to, they have to mine for this algorithm in order to have the right to put the next block on. The problem with that is, as many know, it's very energy intensive. It's not very green. It's not very fast. Ethereum, on the other hand, which is also a proof of work right now, is moving to proof of stake, and other chains are proof of stake, which just simply means that those that have the coins at sufficient amounts and are willing to stake them, quote, stake them, have the right to make the decisions about what goes on the block. So in a public environment, you're relying on a consensus mechanism you don't control. In a private chain, then the owners of the chain are determining what goes on and off the chain and what's valid and not valid. So you have more control over that, but it's also, it's also less secure, because in a public chain with lots and lots of people to validate, that's why it's almost impossible to hack, because you can't just make stuff up. It needs to be validated by a very large number of stakeholders on that chain. So there are pros and cons.
Thank you for defining that. Can you give us an example of how Simba is helping in, say, for example, the medical industry?
Yeah, there are huge opportunities in the medical space. So I don't know if your listeners, and it may be different in Mexico than it is where I am in the US, but right now my medical data is fragmented and all over the place. I'll bet you 100 organizations have my medical data in some form or another, whether it's x-rays or CAT scans, CT scans, whether it's the hospital notes, whatever the case, it's all over. And I don't control any of it. The orgs control it. What's going to happen, I think, here is blockchain is going to enable those data to be owned by the patient. And in this case, the patient will be the one that has the data, and they'll have control over who else gets it. And in this case, you're going to be able to show up to your doctor with the data, have all of your scans, have access to your x-rays, your CT scans, whatever, and be able to and take those with you to your doctor. You're also going to be able to monetize those data. So blockchain is going to allow you to rent or sell your data for whether it's research, clinical trials, any of that kind of thing. So I think it's going to dramatically upend the way we do healthcare, at least in the United States, for sure.
Wow, that's definitely a game changer.
Huge.
I would love to see that come to pass. To change that entire part of that industry. Let me ask you, what is coming for Simba? What is your roadmap for the rest of 2022 and beyond into 23 and 4 look like?
Yeah, wow, we've got a lot on the roadmap. Certainly, we have a lot of features and a lot of blocks that we're building out for the blocks platform. So we have a lot of the other functionality and the templates that we talked about that are on our roadmap. But probably the biggest thing on our roadmap is our desire to move from being just a Web 2 company to being a Web 3 company ourselves. And what I mean by that is we're going to be open sourcing key components of our code and decentralizing those aspects in the management. We see ourselves getting to also a token that will be part of the tokenomics of our ecosystem and the way that we use our product, which would encourage developers to build for our product. As I talked about each of those blocks, and then people also use and implement those blocks for their projects. So we see this moving to being a pure Web3 company over time. And that's very much on our roadmap over the next 12 to 18 months in terms of getting that process really moving.
Fantastic. Awesome. Is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners? And what's the best way? This episode, of course, is on our website, episode blog post page with all your links. But what is the best way that our listeners can reach out and stay in the conversation with you and your team?
Oh, yeah, we would love that. Encourage that completely. So you can reach me just at bkr@simbachain.com. Obviously, you can go to our website and really connect with us at any time and connect with our dev people, our technical talent, our product people. would love to continue that conversation there as well. The one thing I would leave your listeners with at this point is just a realization that we are right in the middle of a transformation that is exactly similar to what we did with the internet in general. I don't know about how many of your listeners have been around for a while, but for me, what we're going through right now reminds me exactly of what we went through in the year 2000, 2001, the early 2000s with the internet. Huge hype, followed by a reality check, followed by tremendous upside potential and opportunity with that transformation. Blockchain is going to solve a lot of problems. It really is the recognition of the peer-to-peer promise with complete trustless environment, which is going to allow us to do transactions peer-to-peer. It's going to disintermediate all kinds of these intermediate validators. So, you think about in finance and supply chain, all these things we talked about, it's all these intermediaries that are going to be disintermediated. So it's going to be really interesting to watch, and I'm fascinated to see how this plays out.
Well said. Well said, Bryan. Hey, it was a pleasure to have you on today's show, and you're welcome back anytime.
I appreciate it, Michael. Very good to talk with you as well, and love to continue this conversation. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you liked today's episode, definitely like and subscribe to the podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, click that little bell notification and subscribe to the channel. Show your support and chime in here tomorrow for another special episode. Until then, make it a great day.
Thanks for tuning in to New to Crypto Podcast. If you like the episode, be sure to follow and subscribe. You can listen to every episode on all major platforms. Have an interest in being on the show or want advertising? Reach out at newtocrypto.io. Head over to our site, newtocrypto.io, to access the resources mentioned in each episode. Until next time, remember to navigate the crypto landscape with pinpoint accuracy.